And now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce to you one-step equations. Let's start with a little vocabulary first. The first vocabulary word that I want to discuss is the term variable. A variable is a symbol, or in other words, a letter, that represents a number. This can be any letter of the alphabet. Next, we have algebraic expression. This is a generalization that is a combination of variables, numbers, which could be constants or coefficients, and operations. So an example of an algebraic expression, one would be 3 plus 4. Another example would be 2. That's an expression. We could also have something like 2x plus 5y. We could have something like 21z. Each of these are an example of an expression. Our next vocabulary word is constant. A constant is a number on its own. So if we just have 2, that's a constant. If we had 3x plus 5. 5 is a constant because it is a number on its own. It does not have a variable that it's being multiplied by. Next is coefficient. Coefficient is the number which is multiplied by one or more variables or powers of variables in a term. So if I have the expression of 3x, 3 is the coefficient because it's being multiplied by the variable x. If I have 2xy plus 5xz, here 2 is a coefficient and 5 is a coefficient. Now we have equation. An equation is a mathematical sentence composed of algebraic expressions set equal to each other. So, if we have 3 plus 4 equals 7, that is an algebraic equation because we have two expressions. We have 3 plus 4, which is an expression, and we have 7, which is an expression, and they are set equal to each other. In the same token, if I had something like 2c plus 5b equals 3c. This would also be an equation. Again, we have an expression here and an expression here that is being set equal to each other. Now let's look at our foldable at example 1. If we want to solve for x plus 4 equals 3, our goal is to get the variable x by itself. To get x by itself, you must get rid of the 4. The 4 is being added to x. To get rid of the 4, you must do the inverse or opposite of what is already being done. The inverse of addition is subtraction. So therefore, we are going to have to subtract 4 from both sides of our equation. A positive 4 and a negative 4 end up being 0, so we're left with just x on the left side of our equation. On the right side of our equation, 3 plus negative 4 gives us negative 1. Therefore, x equals negative 1. Moving on to example 2. X minus 6 equals 8. Again, our goal is to get the variable x by itself. To get x by itself, you must get rid of 6. The 6 is being subtracted from x. To get rid of the 6, you must do the inverse or opposite of what is already being done. The inverse operation of subtraction is addition. So here we have x minus 6 equals 8. That means we're going to have to add 6 to both sides. A negative 6 and a positive 6 give us 0. So now we're left with x equals 8 plus 6, which is 14. Now, for example 3, we have 4x equals 12. We want to solve for x, which means that we've got to get the variable x by itself. To get x by itself, you must get rid of the 4. The 4 is being multiplied by x. Anytime you have a number that is right next to a variable, that is multiplication. To get rid of the 4, you must do the inverse or opposite of what is already being done. The inverse operation of multiplication is division. So we are going to have to divide both sides by 4 in order to get x by itself. So when we divide 4 by 4, that gives us 1. So 1x. In algebra, we don't put the 1 next to the x, we just know that there's an imaginary 1 next to it. 12 divided by 4 is 3. And now for our final example, example 4, negative w divided by 7 equals 3. If we want to solve for w, we've got to get the variable w by itself. And to get it by itself, you must get rid of negative 7. Since there is a negative sitting out here, we bring it down next to our constant, not with our variable. The operation between w and negative 7 is division. Anytime you see a fraction bar, that is division. To get rid of negative 7, you have to do the inverse or opposite of what is already being done. The inverse operation would be multiplication. So now, when we look at this, we said that we had to multiply by a negative 7. Whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other side. This negative 7 is like a negative 7. I'm sorry, I made a mistake there. Let me just erase that. Alright, so now, if there is a negative 7, that's the same thing as a negative 7 over 1. Therefore, this negative 7 and this negative 7 cross-reduce. Negative 7 divided by negative 7 gives you 1. Now we're left with our 1w, or in other words, w. And 3 times negative 7 would give us our negative 21. So w equals negative 21. Remember, if you have any questions, don't forget to write them down and ask your teacher. Have a good one!